Hello everyone and welcome back. This is another video for HackerRank Intermediate certification. In the last video we have done the JavaScript intermediate. This video we are doing Node.js intermediate certification. And let's get started. It has a two problem statement. We got 60 minutes I guess, which is not that much, but let's see what we can do in 60 minutes. But based on the previous experience, I can say that we should be able to crack this. It's all about getting just a simple trick and just pass all the test cases. Okay, blog post API and authorization middleware. Let's do with first one or the second one, anyone. Okay, blog post APIs. I think these type of questions are always kind of similar. In this challenge, your task is to implement a simple REST API to manage a collection of a blog post. This is our code. We can just write the code here only. This is the model post controller, and we might have to write the code inside a controller. So this is our controller, and if you see the package JSON, is it using sequelize in memory object? Yeah, it's using sequelize. It's all about getting a good hands on the sequelize ORM to interface with the database. Okay, so here we have our simple blog post API. I will zoom this a little bit. Now, each post is a JSON entry with the following keys: ID, author, title is published, timestamp, the date when the blog post is created, stored is in the epoch time in the milliseconds. Okay, published date, the date when the blog was published, it's also in the milliseconds. Okay, so we need to just implement this REST API, and we just need to follow the instruction. So what we need to do is, first we have to implement our controller. Inside our controller we are importing the posts. Okay, and we can simply check the flow. This is app.js, this is the post router, and inside the routes we have to define all our routes, right? So we are writing a REST APIs. That means we have to define the get, put, post, all the different APIs with this index. Okay, we are calling controller, we have the router. So how we do it in the Node.js, router dot get, put, post, all these things, right? We'll start adding them. Let's see the API. The model implementation is provided and read only. The task is to implement a REST API. Okay, create a new blog post, get request to the posts, get request to the post by ID, and delete put patch request to post ID should return 405. Delete put and patch. So we can say is there are three APIs which should directly give us. So if I just do a put, if I do a patch, or if I do a delete, it all should return, and the URL can be simply post by ID, right? So we are passing the path parameter. It should be simple like this, and this is path parameter, and inside post controller we are going to write a method, post controller dot not allowed. Let's say this is the method, and in the same way all will be implemented, because all should return the same status code. So I can call one same method. Then there is a create method, and there's a get all, and get all by ID. So there is a get, then there is a get all, and then there is a get by id. We'll fix that error. This is the id and this is simply post. So first is the create block on the forward slash, and now we can define all the methods. Let's say for post, this is for get, this is for get by id. So we can call get by id, get all, and here it will be create. Right, so we configured all our routes: get, put, this is put, get, put, patch, delete, right, get by id and the create. And we have the, now we will go out to our problem statement and we'll go to controller. Let's copy this, like what all methods we need. So we will add them in our controller. We can add this logic in the bottom. Based on looking at that, we can write a class and call all these methods. Okay, so we need to read first what should be the implementation logic for all these APIs. Here is a post, expects a JSON blog response object without the ID, without the publish date, properties, and then you can assume that the given object is always valid. Add the given post to the collection blog post and assign a unique integer ID to it. The first created post must have ID 1, the second should have a 2, and so on. If the published property of the payload is true, sets the is published date to the current system time. Okay. If the is published property for the blog payload object is true, set the published date to the current timestamp. Okay, and return this. So let's add a class blog post, and we are going to have all these methods: async, create blog post. We will get one payload from this. It's only the published date, right? So this is the example of the post JSON object. It is like this. We are going to get each post a JSON entry with the following keys: publish the boolean field denoting this, timestamp the date when the blog post is created, the published at the date when the post JSON object. Maybe like the user himself is submitting the timestamp, so we don't need to generate them. Okay. What we need to worry about is first is getting the list. Const data equal to await, and here we need to get the model. Model is already there. Posts dot find all, it will give me the length, and here I can just say is we already getting the body, right? So this contains the request and response. We will get the body from the request object. It's a create operation, and here we need to assign the ID to the body. Body.id equal to the length plus 1, means all the existing record dot plus 1, because we need to set an incremented ID to this, and then we are going to just insert this await posts dot, what is the method in SQLize create, and we'll just pass the body, and we can return on the status code response dot status 201 dot JSON object with this response. Sometimes it's good to write code. I can recap my basic concepts. Body.id, we are passing this body, and response.status. So this is the create blog post, but it should be just a simple create based on what we have defined in the router. Async create, Then we have another method is get all. Okay, so this is all about the posts. It should return a 201 and the response get all. So return a collection of the posts. It should return 200. Parameter of author is published for the example. Optionally accepts the query parameter also. So there are two query parameter we are going to accept. So request dot query. This is how we can accept. The two parameter is author and is published. All these parameters are optional. In this case, they are present. Only objects matching the parameters returns true. Only the value true or false are valid for the is published query parameter. If any other value is passed in the request, it should be discarded, and is published property must not be queried upon as the data type is boolean. Okay, that is also true. So what it is saying is, in case they are present, only object matching the parameter must be returned. So these are like, they may be present, they may not be. So here we need to do a lot of things here. Looks like if what we need to do is, if author is there and is published is also there, then we need to return the data. So let's say this is the data is an empty array. So in that case we have to take the consideration that this await posts dot find all is the method, and here we need to pass the filter criteria. Filter criteria is, I think there is a where clause in sequelize, and we need to define the operator, and the condition is inside this we need to pass the properties. Like I'm doing the filtration based on author, and then there is a published date is published. Okay, this is like AND condition, and we can get this operator from sequelize. I think this should be the correct one. Sequelize operator and, I mean, if both the cases are true, in both the query parameters are being passed. Else if only one parameter is passed, else if another parameter is passed, otherwise if nothing matches, then data equal to await posts dot find all, and don't pass any filter criteria. If let's say is published is there, then we just need to worry about is published. So we can copy a little bit and we'll just use is published. We'll remove the author filter. If this is the case, then we will just use the author filter. So here we are getting author, here we are getting is published. So we are applying the filter based on that. Okay, do we need the AND operator here? Operator where this is published. I think we don't need it. We can skip it. Even we can just say let's skip it. I mean, if there are multiple arguments are passed, automatically it adds the AND operator. Otherwise you can just simply say where author equal to this, where is published equal to true. I mean, this is the boolean flag, so either it is a true or either it is a false. And then there is another method, get by ID. This is method, and then there is a method get by ID. We are getting the params ID from the request dot params, and here in the above call we have to return the response dot status, which is 200 dot json, the data. Okay, here we got the id, await posts dot find one, and here we are passing the id, we got the data. So if we got the data, that means we can just simply return it, response dot status 200 with the data which we have received by doing a get by id. Otherwise, if we don't have a data, then we can simply say response dot status 404 dot json, id not found, something like this would be there, id not found, right? id not found. Okay, and then there is a one last method which is not allowed, right? So we can say not allowed request response, and we can simply directly call response dot status 405 dot json, and we can just simply pass a message. Okay, let's see this. This is opening closing, this is opening closing, and we need to uh, export the object of this. So that I can access it in the routes. Here is the base is the post router. I have all the routes, not allowed, create get all, get by id, not allowed. And what I can do is I can simply start running tests. Either some of them will fail or some of them will pass. We got some error, id not found, id not found deeply equals to, what is the difference here? Let's see this. Okay, some are passing, looks like. Blog post API medium should create a cannot read property should of undefined, should fetch all the posts. Okay, so this is create. What we are doing, we are getting the request.body.id response post.create body. So what it is saying, first is blog post video should create a published post. We can also see their test cases to understand better. Okay, so here we are passing the post cleanup, then user one is a published, it's unpublished, user one published. Okay, response.body dot should equal to user one dot published. Published date should be greater than new date minus 500. Okay, that means are we going to, okay, this is the thing, published date, we need to add the published date property, and this is the epoch time. Let's see this. ID without the ID and without the published date. Properties as the body payload, you can assume that given object is always valid. If the is published property for the payload is true, sets the published date to the current system time. Okay, this we have missed. So let's go to our controller. So if this is body dot is published, if this is coming as, if is published property is true, that means user wants to publish this blog. What we need to do is we need to just add the publish date, body dot published date. Now I need to get that how to get the time in milliseconds. I think there is a simple method to get that, get milliseconds or something, date dot get millisecond, new date dot get millisecond. Milliseconds. So this is published date, current system time milliseconds, published date, and then now run the tests. Date timestamp into milliseconds. Blog post medium, again something we need to fix. Okay, what it is, should fetch all the posts if the is published filter value does not exist. Should fetch all the posts if the is published filter value does not exist. Should fetch all the posts. If is published filter value doesn't exist, why should it fetch that? Author is published is published. We should still wait for the filter condition. Okay, let's check this in the spec. Okay, so is published, yeah, this is wrong here, right? Is published should be a boolean. Here it is passing string. So that is another catch we need to see. Is published should be a boolean value. So we can simply say is published equal to true. Here also we can say author should be there and is published should be equal to true. Run all the tests again. I still didn't like this. So there are still 3 test cases which are failing. Let's move this to the right. And now let's see this. And passing 3 failing should fetch all the published post for an author. Okay, that should not be the problem. Should fetch all the posts for an author. We are passing author equal to 1. Okay, author ID equal to 1. What I'm giving, expected array 2 to deeply equal to 1, author 1. Okay, so what's wrong here? So we are already getting author or is published if both are there. If one is there, I mean both are not there. If author is there, then we are just simply doing let's try this because we don't need unnecessary these conditions. Is published true false. So remaining all are this should get 404 if post ID doesn't exist. Should get 404. ID not found. Okay, it needs in the double quotes. Should fetch all the unpublished posts for an author. Okay, now yes, I got the bug right. Is published should be a boolean. We just need to check if this is being passed as a boolean or not, right? It can be true or it can be false, so we need to just change the condition. So we just need to pass it if we are getting this as a boolean. So we can just simply say is const is bool. So we can say is published either equal to true or is published either equal to false. If it is equal to some string not equal to true or not equal to false, then this is not a boolean. Okay, now this should satisfy our condition. If you are passing true false, that means you are passing the published flag. Okay, so this is passing. Sorry for the trouble, but what was the mistake which I was not able to catch is if you are passing boolean in the query parameter, then it will always come as a string. It will not come as a true boolean, it will not come as a false boolean, it will always be a single quote true or single quote false. So you have to first check if that is coming as a boolean. Then in this query also you need to pass, okay, if is published true, then only you will be passing true, otherwise for all the cases you will be passing false in this operator, in this equalize and operator. And now all these are passing, right? Sometimes you don't, this doesn't trick and you spend a lot of time and try to see. First I try to convert it into a boolean by comparing true and false. Boolean true and false, I haven't thought, okay, it can be a string. Then I remember recall, okay, this will always be a string until unless you put a parser, because now we are using nest.js and all, we never encounter this where the boolean value is coming as a string. Okay, so this is the fix for that. I will submit this, all the test cases are passing. And now next thing is what is the next question we have is the next node.js middleware we have to write. So let's do that. The middleware should implement the following functionality. We don't have much time, but let's try to implement this. I think I kind of have done this kind of a code if I can recall. So we have to write a middleware based on request response. Okay, what this middleware will do is compute the middleware JS module, default export, should parse the X role header. So from the X role, we will get some value. Okay, the scope of the route is passed to the middleware as a string, scope name, action name. Okay, so if this is a task create, then you should be allowed to access that particular middleware, that particular route. Otherwise you should not be allowed and you should be able to send unauthorized. Okay, so we have to write our middleware.js. Complete the middleware.js module. I will do this offline. Let me clone the code.